Hi, honey. I'm Mr. Steve. What's your name?
Her name is Nikki.
Nikki. Such a pretty name for such a pretty girl.
Good evening. Today on my channel, I'm going to reveal my Camp Nanowrimo project in its entirety. I'm talking characters, inspiration, major plot points, my creative process, the works. So if you're interested in seeing any of that, be sure to stick around because it's all coming up next. It's all coming up next. Hey, it's Stacks McDuck and welcome back to my channel. A channel dedicated to documenting this particular writer's journey as told by a mostly reliable narrator. Give or take. To my 24, count 'em, 24 subscribers, I want to welcome you back and I appreciate having you here. And for you newbies out there, consider hitting the subscribe button to be a part of the Writing Duck Pond. A space for the oblong, the misfits, and most importantly, the authentic. Like I said at the beginning of my video, I am going to share with you my entire Camp Nanowrimo project as it stands this very moment, the day before Camp Nanowrimo. As stated in my author newbie tag 2.0, I regard Camp Nanowrimo as like a sandbox, a place where I can play and work out the kinks of my storytelling. I have no intention of selling this particular project. It's just something to teach me how to write graphic novels. It's like practice for learning how to write graphic novels. So I have no issue sharing it in its entirety. That, and I'm pretty sure that neither Miramax nor Tarantino are willing to sell me the rights or greenlight any project that I come up with. To be truthful, it is a little nerve-wracking to put my ideas out there without them being filtered and combed through by editors, story consultants, beta readers. These are my raw, unfiltered ideas. I could possibly be making a fool of myself just expressing them. However, you can't grow as a creator if you aren't willing to place a bet on your ideas and visions. So here I am, bleeding for you, my audience, in hopes of expressing what I understand to be an exploration of the human condition. So let's start off with me telling you the title and the premise for my story. For Camp Nanowrimo, I want to write a graphic novel called Darling Nikki. Darling Nikki is a fan fiction of Quentin Tarantino's film Kill Bill, in which we follow Nikki Bell, Vernita Green's daughter, in her quest to kill the bride, or Beatrix Kiddo. Now, there's no need to refer to me as Copernicus. I am not breaking new grounds here with this idea. I think every Kill Bill fan has pondered how the story of Nikita Bell would unravel, or how she'd go by getting her revenge. However, I like to think that my plot is rather interesting. Mind you, my opinion on the matter. My opinion on the matter is rather biased. So here's the log line for the story. After her opponent dies in the ring, a disgraced female MMA fighter must utilize information granted to her by a wealthy benefactor to track down and kill her mother's murderer. So let's talk about my inspiration for this story. Kill Bill Volume 1 was one of the first Quentin Tarantino films that I legitimately watched. It came out while I was in high school, and I was at that point where I wasn't just watching content mindlessly. I actually started to engage with media, and I remember that Kill Bill definitely left a impression on me. I just really loved the cinematography, the dialogue, just the film as a whole. Particularly the scene where Beatrix kills Vernita practically in front of her child, Nikki. The image of little Nikki's precious face looking up at Beatrix, no expression, silent, that really stuck with me for years to come. That image got me to thinking, how does a child process that kind of trauma? can she process that trauma? I personally feel as though she cannot. In that moment, she's shattered, and the only thing left is a vessel for resentment and rage. In witnessing that, I saw the opportunity to tell a cautionary tale of dealing with your grief and trauma in a healthy manner, or else your trauma will deal with you. My philosophy on storytelling, well, one of many philosophies I have on storytelling, is that story acts as an experiment to test out the various social, moral, political, and spiritual hypotheses that we have as individuals. You have to approach the subject matter at hand with both objectivity as well as honesty. Just don't allow your personal stances on politics, social, political, anything. Don't give them carte blanche just because they're your stances and your faiths, your beliefs. You should formulate a viable as well as competent opposition to your stances. Typically, your protagonist will take on the responsibility of touting and testing out your personal stances that you implement into your story, whereas the antagonist will take counter stance to that. And the whole point of it is to come to some sort of synergy, figure out what is quote unquote right or wrong within the framework of your story, and by extension, life, how you see it. For Nikki, I needed her as my protagonist to play out the theme of dealing with your grief and trauma in a healthy manner, or risk having her trauma deal with her. Next, I want to touch on the medium I've chosen to write in. I decided to write the story as a graphic novel. Although it's always been my dream to write a novel, it wasn't until I started studying creative writing for entertainment that I realized that my strength lies in screenwriting. Perhaps this has something to do with me consuming most of my story through film and television. I just have a knack for screenwriting. Now, the problem with me being proficient in screenwriting is the fact that a lot of projects I would want to write would come with a hefty price tag, and Hollywood is not interested in backing a schmo like myself, a nobody. Film and television producers, executives, they all want to make sure that they not only get a return on their investment, but they also turn a profit. And an unknown name makes a lot of people nervous when investing money. So no matter how good of a story I could possibly write, it will all get lost in the film industry sauce. So I had to decide, how would I capitalize on my visual storytelling talents that is low risk, cost effective, and above all, relatively faithful to the vision I have in mind. And it occurred to me that graphic novels could possibly be my best option. The only budgetary concerns one might find with writing a graphic novel is the going rate of the artists you hire, as well as the time spent creating and drawing the graphic novel. So this solution kind of works twofold for me. Not only does it remain faithful to my vision, it also displays, if done well, not this particular project, just other ones in general. But if this does well, it can alleviate any hesitation studio executive might have, and maybe loosen their grip on their coin purse to help produce what it is I want to create. So with that explanation out of the way, let's move on to characters. I don't want to get into every character I have in the story because this video will go on way too long. We're just going to talk about the ones that matter. So on to the characters. Naturally, we'll start off with the titular character, Nikki, or Nikki Bell. Nikki is in her mid-20s, and when we first meet her at the beginning of the story, she's the UFC world champion. Her specialty is Muay Thai. You may be wondering, why is it I made her a UFC fighter? Well, it all boils down to, how am I going to get this little girl to come to a place that she can even contend with a hired assassin. So I wanted to give her a training basis to build off of. And I think being a UFC fighter is pretty good grounds to start off with. Also, the reason why I made Nikki a UFC fighter is because fighting is a means of coping for Nikki. In her backstory, after her mom died, she started acting out, getting in fights at school, and her grades slipping. So her father, Dr. Bell, at his wit's end, goes ahead and enrolls her into martial arts classes. So she has a relatively safe place to exercise her rage and frustration. Nikki took to martial arts like a fish to water, and she rose in rank at exponential speeds, as well as won tournament after tournament. And after a while, she realized she wanted to make this a career, and she started training seriously so she could compete in the UFC. Long story short, Nikki fights to forget. Outside the ring, Nikki is introverted, she's guarded, and some may go as far as to say that she's actually polite. That's how she got the moniker or the fight name Darling. Inside the ring, though, Nikki is fierce, calculating, and determined. Although she's extremely successful, Nikki has not gained closure of her core wound of losing her mother. So by the time we meet her at the beginning of the story, she's rather despondent as well as unfulfilled by all of her fame and accolades. The next character I want to breeze through is Sabia Resnick, the UFC fighter challenging Nikki for her title. Sabia is 27 years old. She hails from Eastern Europe, and her specialty is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Sabia is the classic shit talker. She's borderline sadistic and believes that half the fight is won within the mind. And so she is constantly goading and prodding at Nikki leading up to the fight. Instead, actions leads to Sabia tugging at Nikki's frame mental state. Sabia is strong, savage, and ruthless. And throughout the beginning of the story, it looks as though she has more and more of a chance to take Nikki's title away from her. Next up, we have Ichiro Takahashi, a CEO and engineer hailing from Tokyo, Japan. Ichiro is the one surviving intact member of the Crazy 88, sent running home from the bride's carnage, wiping tears from his eyes. Ichiro's backstory is that he was an exceptional student growing up, but due to having a less than agreeable personality, as well as a superiority complex, he didn't make too many friends. That is until his delinquent cousin Daisuke moved into town. Ichiro's mother, noticing her son's antisocial behavior, decided to pair him up with his cousin Daisuke for companionship. It's Daisuke who gets Ichiro involved with the Crazy 88, and he's found a new home within the gang. Ichiro was in his element amongst the hoodlums and thugs of the Crazy 88, these rebels who weren't bound by societal norms and common decency. The gang took what they wanted, when they wanted, how they wanted, and Ichiro couldn't be happier with this fact. Until the bride slaughtered and maimed the Crazy 88, sending Ichiro home running. It was once Ichiro visited the hospital to see his broken and ravaged friends that he realized how foolish he was, how foolish the entire gang had been. To do what you want when you want isn't power. It's petty thuggery at best. And so he resolved to attain both power and influence, not just over one measly city, but over the entire world. Equipped with his exceptional intellect and ruthless ambition, within the decade, Ichiro Takahashi managed to revolutionize the global market with his cybernetic prosthetics corporation known as the Crowned 88. Why Crowned 88? No reason. With his ingenuity and determination, Ichiro managed to restore the remaining members of the Crazy 88 as something better, something more exalted. And with his power and influence, he now has something for Nakia Bell. The next character up is Elle Driver. Elle is in her early 50s, She is completely blind now, and she resides in South America in the brothel that was once ran by Esteban. She is now overseeing managing. She's now managing that establishment. Elle is still the same snide and vindictive character we grew to know in the first few films. However, age has only further soured her disposition. She takes Nikki under her tutelage, much like Paimé took Elle and Beatrix. Despite Elle being filled with piss and vinegar, by some miracle, her and Nikki develop a fondness for one another. Elle almost acts as a surrogate mother to Nikki. Granted, a cantankerous surrogate, but a surrogate nonetheless. The next character up is BB Kiddo, the bride's daughter. BB is a 26-year-old professional photographer, and she's an easygoing, relatively kind individual. Now, one might expect for Nikki and BB to have an adversarial kind of dynamic. However, in an act of manipulation, Nikki tries to seduce BB. Initially, it's just a ploy to get close to BB's mother. However, as time goes on and the relationship develops, Nikki is realizing that she actually has earnest feelings for BB. She feels things with BB that she's never felt with anyone else before. She feels peace, joy, as well as abundance. As you can imagine, this compromises Nikki's goal immensely. Factoid, each chapter of this story is kind of in the same motif as The Bride. So it's, for instance, Ichiro is the mogul, Elle is the crone, but BB is known as the liability. Lastly, we have the bride, or Beatrix Kiddo. She's in her early 50s, and although she's aged, her skills haven't diminished by much. She hasn't really clued in BB into her past. However, she has taught BB to fend for herself. Now on to how I structured and plotted my story, or at least my method of plotting and structuring stories. This might be the hardest part for me to explain because these methods are so ingrained in my mind. I do them pretty much second nature. Like, I don't have to think about them. I just do them. But hopefully I can explain them all right. When it comes to structuring and plotting stories, I take notes from several individuals. Those individuals being Michael Hage, Robert McKee, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, as well as Dwight Swain. A system that has proven itself time and time again is Michael Hage's 6-stage plot structure. Ever since I started studying creative writing, I have held that method close to the pocket or close to the chest, and it's never let me down. It's a means of plotting your protagonist's inner and outer journey. And by using this model, you will ensure that every action has an underlying motive behind it. I'll leave a link down in this description box down below where you can see or find Michael Hage's 6-stage plot structure chart. If you would like for me to go into depth about Michael Hage's 6-stage plot structure, leave a comment down below and I'll make a video. Another practice that I utilize when I'm plotting out my story scenes or acts is to ensure that there is a value swap by the end of said scene or act. This is something I picked up from Robert McKee's book Story, Style, Structure, Substance, and the Principles of Screenwriting. What I mean by value swap or value switch is the emotional value that your protagonist is feeling at the beginning and end of a scene or act. So some emotional values that I can list off are as follows. You can go from love to hate, you can go from fearful to courageous, as well as apathetic to invested, just to name a few. This practice is used to ensure every scene carries its weight. If there's a scene in which an emotional value has not shifted, either the scene doesn't belong or the scene must be rewritten to ensure that the scene carries its weight and serves a purpose. The next method I have comes from the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and that would be to implement the yes but or no therefore method. You never want to explain your story's plot like this happens, and then this, and then this, and then this happens. There's no real causality with that method of storytelling. It's seemingly random events that happen to stack on top of one another. What you want is for your plot to progress due to the consequences, good or bad, of your protagonist's actions in hopes of attaining a desired goal. This method ensures that your plot is steadily moving forward, as well as your characters are not just active, but their actions directly affect the plot. An example from my story would be Nikki having the goal of defeating Sabia to defend her title. Does Nikki succeed in defeating Sabia? Yes, but she accidentally kills Sabia in the octagon due to having a disassociative episode while in the ring. This results in Sabia being ejected from the fighting league, as well as her being stripped of her title anyway. The last practice I use is from Dwight Swain, and it's to include sequences to your scenes. According to Dwight, a sequence is like a reflective scene that happens after a very action-intensive scene. Its purpose is for your character to be reflective of the actions they've taken in the past and how they should move forward from that point on to achieve their goal, or they come to the conclusion that they want to chase a whole nother goal. Sequences are used to slow down the pacing of a story. They allow characters to recollect themselves after an action towards their goal either fails or succeeds with an unforeseen consequence. But keeping in line with the previous practice from Robert McKee, you have to have an emotional value swap by the end of said scene or sequence for it to have purpose. Typically, a sequence ends once a character has come to a decision about their next move, how they're going to continue to pursue their goal or pursue an entirely different goal altogether. Now on to my actual plot. In keeping with the emotional value swap I mentioned with the story, I know Nikia's starting point, her stasis, and where she ends up, her neostasis. Nikia's status is as follows. She starts off as a externally strong and capable woman. However, underneath all that, she is emotionally stunted. In the story's setup, the audience is introduced to Nikia as she defends her title for a third time. With fame and success, Nikia isn't as hungry for victory as she once was. She's too distracted from ghosts of the past. This portion ends with Nikia killing Sabia in the octagon. The inciting incident. After being ejected from the fighting league, Nikia gets a letter from Ichiro, CEO of the Crowned 88. In said letter, he offers her a job as well as some information about her mother and her mother's murderer. He hires her to gather clues and leads so that she can enact her revenge. The first dossier that Ichiro gives Nikki is for Nayako Hisakawa. Nayako is the assassin sent to kill Beatrix the moment Beatrix finds out she's pregnant. As those who've seen the movie know, Nayako grants Beatrix mercy because she just found out she's pregnant. Due to Nayako failing at her mission to kill Beatrix, Nayako fled her assassin syndicate to retire as a sleepy innkeep. When Nikki arrives at Nayako's traditional Japanese inn and refers to Nayako by her agent name, Nayako assumes that Nikki is there to kill her on the behalf of her former assassin syndicate. Due to this misunderstanding, a fight breaks out between Nikia and Nayako. After Nikki extracts valuable information from Nayako, Nikki tracks down El Driver, who is located in a South American brothel. El is a cantankerous and miserly old crone, but once she realizes who Nikki is, she decides to take Nikki under her wing. After an intensive training, Nikki is given information about BB Kiddo, who is Beatrix's daughter. She gets name, location, profession. BB is residing in Las Vegas and she is a professional photographer. With the intention of manipulating BB, Nikki seduces her, only for Nikki to realize that she has rather intense and genuine feelings towards BB. This provides a conflict of interest as well as complicates matters significantly. That's all I've written out so far. As you can see, My third act is blank, save for the little title here. It doesn't mean I don't know what I want to happen. I am fairly certain I know what I want to happen in that portion. I would just prefer to see how the previous puzzle pieces start to fall into order before I continue on with that. I can, however, tell you the neostasis or the ending that I am working up towards with Nikki. This is her neostasis. Unwilling to live with the pain of loss, Nikki dies upon completing her quest to kill Beatrix. Did I mention this was a tragedy? I once heard that tragedy is when a character gets exactly what they want. A happy ending, however, is when a character gets what they need. To get what they need, a character must realize their core wound and mend it so that they can grow. I kind of wanted this story to have a Shakespearean tragic lilt to it. Because Nikki cannot mend her core hurt, she pays the price. And to be completely honest, I relate to that hardcore. I've held on to unhealthy attachments for far longer than I ought to, and I reap the consequences of doing that. As much as I want to see Nikki win, and believe me, I do, I have to remain true to the character that I've crafted and allow her actions to play out authentically. It's so easy just to say, get over trauma, get over stress, get over anxiety, but it's far more difficult to actually do that. I was going to go into some of the pitfalls and concerns I have about my story, but this video is getting pretty long, so I'll probably address those issues during my Camp Nanowrimo vlogs coming up in the upcoming days and weeks. So that does it for my project reveal and deep dive. This came out a lot longer than I anticipated. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed. If so, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I just appreciate you guys just hanging out with me. I want to wish all the Camp Nanowrimo campers a productive and creative Camp Nanowrimo and all the best of luck. I hope everyone wins. All right, later. Bye.